Hi, I'm Dr. Transformation Group, and we're a leadership consulting firm that believes every leader should be developed to their full potential. We listen to what the real challenges are causing you to feel burned out and customizing a coaching plan that guarantees success. If you're wanting to become a less stressed leader, call us at 804-598-9175 or check out our website at transformationgroupllc.com.
Hey, welcome back to this early morning, and I'm excited because I am really going to be talking to Mike King, the King of Biz, and we are going to be talking about how you as a leader can really work more effectively with cross-functional teams. This is Dr. Heather Williamson, and you are listening to the Leadership Doc at ESPN 106.1. So, thinking about cross-functional teams, Mike, those are teams that, typically back in the day, we had like one department or one function, right? Everybody was kind of working like in engineering or sales. But nowadays, people have to really work effectively within different departments, especially if they are working on projects. I remember years ago, I got called in to do a team building with Fort Lee, with the Army, but it wasn't the Army, military. It was the area of the families, the resources for the families. So the biggest struggle they had was they had a big silo effect going on. So when you think about the military and the resources for the families that are there, I mean, you've got the schools, you got to get the kids in the schools. You've got how do you find resources, make sure that everybody's aware of everything that's available on base. If unfortunately, sadly, a family or a veteran comes back, has passed, doing his or her job, how do you handle those bereavement? That's a whole separate department. So they had to really figure out how they could work more effectively as a team and not have silos anymore. And so when it comes to having cross-functional teams, that's the leader's responsibility. Would you agree with that?
Yes. So let me ask you, so when information is territorial, that is what it is. And back in the day, engineering was separate from sales, was separate from marketing, was separate from operations. What do you think was the real reason that all of a sudden the cross training and I guess the integration of teams, you think businesses were forced to do it? They realized there was a value in it?
I think they realized there was a value. It's like, just for example, let's just say that your company, you worked in engineering and you were responsible for creating a new product. Well, if you just stayed within your lane, within the function of that engineering department, you would be really just talking amongst yourselves. How do we, what's this product going to look like? How do we think the customers are going to want? What features are they going to want? Think about, the iPhone that I just bought a new S13 Pro.
That is sharp.
I know it is kind of sharp looking, but there are a lot of features that I will have no idea how to use it, but their responsibility, the engineering people trying to figure this out, if they just did survey data, that's not going to give them a whole lot of information. But if they actually work with sales, so a different department, then the salespeople will know the features that the customers are wanting, right? They'll also know the things that the customers hate, so that are just cumbersome, they don't work. This thing has 3 cameras on it.
Right. And how do we know which one to use?
Exactly. I have no earthly idea.
That is
I am pushing a button and hoping it works.
Well, you know what? We're at the mercy of technology, which is great, and you can harness it. But when you're talking about a leader harnessing the power of the organization, all of a sudden the leader has to be visionary to say,
exactly.
Okay, so yeah, engineers are going to think this way. But if I brought sales and marketing into it, then maybe the system could work better. Because if all I know is from the engineering standpoint, or if you leave the utilization to a bunch of salespeople, what does that look like? But it takes a leader understanding what that means.
And just think about the savings of time, resources,
And redos.
and
That's-
because there's definitely going to be some
Yeah,
redos.
we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board a number of times, but we could have alleviated that with, having people of different function, people in different groups getting together instead of siloed, because that's what it used to be. The engineers over here, sales over here, and then a product goes through, and then all of a sudden, everybody has an issue that could have been resolved if the management had said, let's work together.
Yes, and especially for the salespeople trying to sell that product, and they're like, "Oh, my people, our customers don't want this; they want this feature."
And then
Yeah.
the marketing people and other people are saying, if you guys could sell anything,
I know.
we'd be fine.
Exactly. And then think about the department heads. They have to be on board, because typically if you're in a cross-functional team, you're still doing your other job, that you got hired to do. And now within this cross-functional team, you are part of this special project that still takes up time, takes up, your resources, and the leader, the department head has to be on board, because they're going to be giving you those
Right,
resources.
so you are the leadership doc. You sit above the department heads.
Yes.
Ma'am, how do you get buy-in? Because you out there, you got to turn into a politician now.
Yeah.
Because you got to get buy-in from multiple people.
Right.
Floor's yours.
So people have to understand how it's going to benefit them. They have to know, all right, what problem is this going to resolve for me? How is this going to make my life easier? And if they see the benefit to whatever it is that they're being asked to provide resources, whether that's, their staff, money, whatever else, then they're going to be more likely to buy in.
Can it ever be a groundswell of emotion coming from the bottom to force that change? Or does it always have to be from top down, and you have to have an envisioned leader?
I think it helps with an envisioned leader, but I think it also, if you listen to your employees and you actually hear what they're saying when they try to share, great ideas that could help make their life easier, which in turn would make probably the boss's life easier, or the company's life easier. They're worker bees. They're the ones on that ground level, and they know what works and what doesn't work. And so if you listen to them and truly take into account what they're saying, and not just brush it off, but I don't have time for that, or we don't have a budget for that, then maybe this is something, if you have an honest discussion, hey, I really like your idea, but it's not feasible right now, but we can maybe look and plan for the future, how we might be able to implement that strategy. Who knows? But I do believe that listening to your people, if you want to get ahead, is really important. Yes.
There you go.
So how can you get your people to really lead better when it comes to cross-functional teams? There are some strategies.
Okay.
So the first is, you have to, like I said before, create that mutual understanding of how it's going to benefit. Self-preservation. What can I do is going to make my life easier. That's really important.
That is important.
That is so important. And then the second is communication. You have to be able to communicate effectively. And that doesn't mean just, if something is, going wrong, you have to say, okay, this is obviously the vision, right? But it's more than that. You have to be able to communicate, what project, the deadlines are coming up, who's responsible for what strategies am I putting in place that are going to make sure that everybody is on board and working in the same direction.
One of the things so does it make a difference in industry? Like, I would guess certain industries are more nimble than others. Other industries, this is what we do. We've always done it like that. The whole industry's done it like that. And then something comes along and forces change.
Yeah, called COVID.
Yeah. That was a big reset button.
That was a huge reset button. People who would never have allowed their employees to work remotely, all of a sudden were forced to work remotely, and they had to figure out, how are we going to do this? you had state agencies who would never allow Zoom, to infiltrate their tech IT.
All of a sudden,
Yeah, they had to figure out, all right, how are we gonna work? How are we gonna
we
function?
had lawyers talking about depositions.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone had to be in, that's the way it is. Everyone has to be in the same room. Now all of a sudden, hey, you know what? We can do this thing.
Remotely.
Yeah.
We'll put you up on the TV, on
And
the
now
monitor.
everybody is, yeah, so that's the big reset button.
Yeah. That was a big one. And they learned, you know what? We can do it.
Okay, so you're the leadership doc. We're talking about leadership as well as,
Functional teams.
cross-functional teams. The part that communication plays in that, does that work better when everyone is in the same area? How about when we're trying to do that? And I'm in Pennsylvania, you're in New Jersey, this one's in Missouri. How do we do that effectively when we are not in the same location?
It's called intention. And what I mean by that is, yeah, it's easier if everybody's in the same room. Life is so much easier if everybody's in the same room.
Yeah.
But these days, that's not reality. So you have to be intentional to make sure that people aren't excluded or aren't getting just a piece of the information. So it's scheduling, team meetings, making sure that what is being communicated to everybody. So it requires a lot of intention and a lot of effort, but it can be done. But I will say this, because having to lead cross-functional teams, I think this would be a real struggle for somebody who's new to management. I think
that's where you come in.
Right.
That's where your group comes in.
Exactly.
Shameless plug.
So you have to have somebody with some experience in working with, different leaders with regard to different departments, and just being able to communicate across different functions within an organization.
How important is it? Now I'm taking over yours.
Oh,
but
you
but
go
you
right
know what
ahead.
this is? This is, I got the leadership doctor here, and these are questions that you have. How do teams and organizations build and train the next generation of leaders? How do you look down into the group and tap that one to say that one has it?
I think for me, if you're looking at succession planning,
That's what it seems to be.
yeah, if you're looking at succession planning, I think it really focuses on, how well does that person communicate? How well are they able to build relationships with their colleagues and those above them and those below them, because they got to get the job done. So relationship building is important. Also understanding, being able to problem solve. Problem solve is really important. And when you think about that, how do they hold themselves accountable? Because I think if they know how to hold themselves accountable, then they might be pretty good at holding employees accountable. At least they'll have some insight. I mean, obviously there's going to be some bugs in the ointment, because not everybody wants to be held accountable, but they at least know something about accountability.
And how do you move them along on the leadership management train to give them a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more, so I can groom them and take them to the point where they're really effective as leaders with the communication, whether it is in person or whether it's digital.
I think having them lead, giving them the opportunity to, whether it's lead a project, lead team meetings, getting them up in front of people so they get comfortable.
That plays a big part.
Yeah, so they get comfortable, sharing the vision of that meeting, sharing what their purpose of what they're working on, getting them to be able to bring ideas and get ideas out of the other teammates, encouraging that. It starts with the little stuff, and of course they have to want it. So I think if you are a smart leader, you're always asking your people, what is it that I can do to, one, make your job easier? And then also, where do you want to be in a year 3 years, 5 years down the road. And, I get them to start thinking about that and voice it, verbalize it. And then your job as a leader is to help them develop those skills. So when an opportunity does pop up, hopefully within your company, then they'll be able to be ready for it and get the job.
Really quickly, now I'm not trying to hijack your show, but these are questions that I have. So in the military, you're part of the unit, you're part of a squad.
Right,
Okay. And then tomorrow I get promoted. I
right,
got promoted today.
right.
No, I'm in charge of the squad.
Mhm.
But yesterday I was one of the people complaining about the previous squad leader.
Yeah.
How do you, yeah,
How do you,
because if someone came
transition?
from somewhere else, they instantly come in with the credibility that they are the leader. But yesterday I was complaining along with everyone else about this leader they were deficient in whatever way. Now all of a sudden I'm that person and I'm supposed to lead them. How do you do that effectively? And is that a part of corporate America too?
Yeah, it's part of corporate America because a lot of companies do move their employees up within the organization.
Yeah.
They don't always, I mean, I think it depends on the skill set or the job that's needed, and they look within. If they have it, then they'll try and promote within because that's a motivator for the employees there, right?
Yes.
That there's movability, upward mobility. And then if somebody doesn't have that skill set, then they'll hire outside. Or, but if you're are newly promoted to management, supervisor, whatever the position, and yesterday you were one of the coworkers, and
Yes.
today you're the manager, you're their boss.
I may have been the chief complainer of the coworkers.
Mhm.
And if I wasn't outwardly, maybe I was right along with them. Now today, I'm issuing orders and directives.
Yes. So one is you have to know that in your mind that you're the boss and there's no more fraternizing, going out drinking with the buddies after work anymore. No. You have to, you can go out and socialize if it's like a group event. That's important.
But it's different now.
But it's different. You're the boss and you can't be complaining and talking about your previous coworkers anymore that are now your direct reports. You have to earn their respect as their boss. But I think being authentic in that you're like, hey guys, I was you yesterday and now I'm the boss today.
Is there a need for that conversation there? Because I don't think that I've never been there where that happened before.
I know they don't.
They
don't. But I think
but everybody knows.
It's like the elephant in the room.
We're not going to speak on it, but yesterday you were one of us.
Yeah. So I think if you are transparent and you're authentic and you're saying, yeah, hey, I may not know all the answers because, yesterday I was you and today I'm me. But if you come out and say, but you know what? I know all of y'all and I know your skill sets. I know, who's really strong, what your strengths are. I'm going to be looking for you to help me in this whole, leading the team now towards whatever goal that now you're responsible for. I think that if you're just honest and transparent and be authentic and act like you don't, and really say that, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm here for you. They have to know that you're going to support them.
Okay. That's why you're the leadership doctor. Because
that's why.
That is why.
That's
why
why.
you got all them credentials behind your name. Because everybody knows you were one of us. Now you're promoted and you're not. I'm not saying anything. You're not saying anything. Nothing gets done effectively.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're saying just as a leader, you got to have that conversation.
Yeah, because just think how they're feeling.
Yeah,
they're going to be on pins and needles.
Look at her. She was up with us yesterday. Now all of a sudden she's there going over to
look at her. She's all uppity now.
Exactly. Look what 24 hours did. And a conversation with management. All of a sudden, Heather, this is your team now. We want you to lead them.
Yes. Yeah. It's like I said, the elephant in the room. You got to address it.
That's transformation.
That is transformation.
And that's the name of your company.
It is the name of the company. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So when you think about cross-functional teams, they're typically working on a project, right?
Okay,
So you have to be really good at project management as the leader, meaning you have to, the old saying, you have to be within scope, on budget, and on time.
the three of
Because
us.
yes,
Any one of those three out of whack,
exactly, then the project is going to be really expensive. It's not going to meet the parameters that you probably wanted, or, people are not going to be happy. The stakeholders are not going to be happy. So it's really important when you are in leading a cross-functional team to make sure that everybody knows with these project updates, these status updates, where we are, what obstacles need to be addressed, what are we still within budget? I mean, that conversation has to happen.
and that has to happen and conveyed to the team.
Exactly.
Because the team needs to know where we are. There's some benchmarks that we have to hit.
Yes.
What happens as a leader as we're not hitting those? When you could see, as they call it, scope creep, a little, there's a little bit, and you can a little bit, and next thing you know, you're way off target.
So, and that would be really helpful, like when you're trying to make decisions on where, resources should go, especially with project management. And if you are not looking at those signs that something's not working, or you're not listening to your team, that, Joe over here is in a different department and I'm slowly getting information from him, not in the time frame that I needed in order to do my job on this. And that could be because there's lack of, the department head is like, what, I'm not really being kept informed of what's going on. So evidently it's not that important.
We're back to that siloing of information.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when things start going out of whack, like the scope creep, and things get really expensive, not within budget, it's because there's not a communication. Or there's a lot of, then, finger pointing starts happening.
Which is not good.
Which is never good. Finger pointing is never good. I mean, it should always be, there was this Toyota Motor Company. They have in their project management area, their philosophy was recover and reflect, R&R. So they would actually recover from whatever catastrophe happened, where, a car part wasn't there, or there's a defect in the product, and they end up looking at, all right, what's not working. They don't do the finger pointing. They recover it really quickly, they fix it, and then they get it resolved. And then at the end, then they actually start reflecting about, all right, where could we have, seen this earlier? What went wrong? What obstacles popped up that weren't addressed? There was never any finger pointing. And then this allows everyone to really open up freely and share without fear of retribution.
Because everyone thinks that it's going to come back to me.
Yeah, bite them in the butt.
Because I was the one who helped. For all the people who say there's no I in team, no, there's not. But when I don't do my part, the team pays.
Right.
And we won't be a happy team for very long.
Exactly. And especially when the others are doing their part and they see you slacking off. And then there's that total trust thing. You're going to have an issue with that.
And that's where we've talked about culture before.
Yeah.
Which plays a big part in it. That now the management of the team, and that shows the strength of a leader to say, I see something that's not right here.
Right.
And that's the experience of a manager too.
Because they've been burned, or, they've also seen teams that really work well together. And then they also see teams that don't work well together. And I think when you have the insight of both, it really helps you define who you are as a leader. And, it's kind of like, I've had terrible bosses. Actually, luckily, I've only had like one really bad one.
I had one really bad one at the TV station. And did you know when you really did it, how big and bad it was at that moment?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did know?
Oh, I did know.
I didn't know until I looked back and got more experience to realize that, ooh, that one was humongous.
Oh, yeah, I knew. And he just thought that he was doing it. He's like, I got a master's in, organizational behavior. And of course, I'm thinking, well, you might have a master's, but I don't think you learned anything.
They gave up the paper, but
Oh.
you did not take them up on the learning portion. of it.
No. And no, I knew right off because, you got to treat people right. And if you don't treat people right, then there's something wrong.
So let's talk. You've had some wins recently, and that's what I haven't talked to you for a while. Let's talk about some of the things that Transformation Group really.
Mhm.
You've had some wins. Let's talk about those.
So, 2 weeks ago, we talked about my Stanton trip. I
Yes.
was in Stanton, Virginia for a week, co-facilitating the Commonwealth Management Institute. So this is where state employees, when they're in their mid-level managers, attend a leadership training for a week. So this is actually through BCU and their performance management group. So if you're a state employee, check it out. But basically they all took the DISC assessments. They took 360 assessments. I did the facilitations of both. They had two other or three other co-facilitators come in, but it was an amazing week where different areas were really focused on with regard to self-leadership and self-awareness.
Okay.
It was awesome. And then gosh, I don't know, I've just been doing a lot lately, which I'm really excited because I'm ready to move forward. It's
There
just
you go.
crazy.
That's a leadership doc.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so I think we are winding down here. I'm so excited that Mike was able to help me out today and be my guest.
I'll step in and because it's like going to the therapist and just lay down on the couch and I had this issue or question. Doc, what do you think?
I know.
That's yeah.
So that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for listening to Talking Leadership with Dr. Heather Williamson, the Leadership Doc on ESPN 106.1 FM. And I'll be back next Monday at 5:30 in the morning. So grab your cup of coffee and join me. And then you will learn to have some great leadership tips. Bye.
Care.